Welcome to the Pickaweb podcast, where we ask the questions that business owners want answers to. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking to an amazing young British entrepreneur, Ross Fobian. Ross is the founder and CEO of ResponseTap. ResponseTap is a pioneer of call tracking solutions for businesses. They are the UK leader in their field and process over 1.25 million phone calls per month. Having started his business in a small office in 2008, Ross's company now counts household names such as Virgin Money, British Gas and Tesco as customers. ResponseTap has grown to a staff of 70 with offices in London, New York and Manchester. With turnover in excess of £2.5 million per year and growing rapidly, Ross is at the helm of a fast-growing business which expects to multiply this figure many times over in the coming years. Ross, a very big welcome.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, that's great. Ross, I mean, that is some story, incredible. Take us back to the start, if you could. Where did it all begin?
Yes, so I got introduced to my now business partner, Richard Hamnet, by a mutual friend. And really, we were both in university at the time. We started several businesses in university. And our friend thought it was rather strange that instead of going out drinking and partying, we were running businesses and trying to start various initiatives off. And so he introduced us. And over time, we were going through sort of just helping each other out, trading each other's services. Richard was running a digital telecoms consultancy, amongst other things, and I was running a search engine optimization and pay-per-click company, and so doing online marketing for different customers. And really what happened is I started signing up a lot of local businesses who the majority of their conversions come over the phone. And so it was quite frustrating because I was going to them at the end of the month and saying, did that work or not? And luckily for me, they were saying, yes, it did. But they couldn't explain why. They had no idea what was making the phone ring, and literally when I asked them the question, they would say, well, it was the website, which didn't help because I had no idea whether it was SEO or pay-per-click or which keywords or any information beyond it was the website. And so I got chatting to Richard over a drink back in December 2007. And I just made a comment, said, it'd be great if we could track phone calls because loads of my clients need it. And Richard turned around and said, I think we can probably do that. And so we did a 2-hour brainstorming session, again, over more drinks, and came up with an idea. And basically, pretty much then and there said, okay, well, let's start a business, let's do this. I was still at university at the time, so I said, well, I'm in my final year of university, I'm busy doing a dissertation. Let me finish that, and we'll get going. So in the meantime, we found office space, incorporated the company, basically got everything, all the paperwork done. And on basically on the last day of university, sort of walked out of university on the Friday and walked into the offices on the Monday and said, okay, let's go build this. We then spent the first 4 months sitting in a little box office with no windows, and basically building out the solution, talking to clients, seeing what they wanted. And then we launched the first product in October 2008. And pretty much straight away, we got a lot of feedback from potential clients and customers and from agency partners as well, saying, great, we love what it can do, but we want more. We want more granular data. And so we started building out the product that we now sell. And it really took a while. It took 6 months to figure out how to achieve what we achieve. And so a lot of innovation went into that. Built the product. It took 18 months to build, and launched that in 2010. We then grew extremely rapidly. Prior to that, we only had just under 100 clients, and within 8 months, we then grew to well over 600.
Fantastic.
And then it was very much a learning curve of, how do you grow a company that quick with the support requirements, billing requirements, and everything else that comes with that. So we started growing the staff. We got it up to 17 staff And at that point, we raised £1.6 million from Eden Ventures, venture capital firm in London. And that was really to expand on what we had done, basically work on product development, get it to a point that we could expand across the US, which we did. So we took the business to the US, opened up offices in New York, hired some staff over there, and more recently we've just raised £4 million. Again, Eden got involved, and Beringia led that. So essentially, we've just got that, and we're just going through another growth round. So we're planning to go over 100 employees over the next 18 months, and looking to grow out in Europe.
Wow. Well, I'm exhausted just sitting here listening to it. I mean, that's an amazing, amazing story. Well done.
Thank you.
But tell us the truth. Was it an idea? Was it on a beer mat? Did you write down your business plan on a beer mat? Is that the truth?
It pretty much was. We actually did have a sheet of paper, but yeah, the business plan developed over time. Things definitely changed, and as we learned more about the industry and what customers wanted, we definitely changed things. And I think part of our success is actually listening to the customers, and really understanding their requirements and taking that forward. So the first product we built was really a case of let's build something and get it out, and we know it's good. And then we took a lot of that feedback and developed all of that feedback into the next product. And that's really why it's as successful as it is. Because without the certain innovations, we just wouldn't have got where we are now.
Okay, so for the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with your company's service, just take a couple of minutes to explain to us, how does it work and what are the benefits of using it?
Yeah, so we do what we call voice-based marketing automation, which in a nutshell essentially means we can track the entire lifetime of a customer, online and offline, through to a phone call. So we can understand when a customer calls you. So any business that relies on the phone to make or facilitate a sale, so that can be sort of insurance companies, any sort of financial companies, healthcare, service companies, things like that. Anywhere where there's a phone call involved, typically without phone call tracking, you lose the connectivity from your advertising to the phone call. So all you get is 100 phone calls to your business, and that's all you know. What we do is we actually connect that back into your full marketing suite, also to your CRM and any other systems that you've got. So we can really automate your marketing and figure out what works. So we can understand whether your phone call came from a paid search campaign or organic search, but more importantly, how it was generated over time. So how many times did they interact with different marketing campaigns, and which point did they then pick up the phone? But then more importantly, what happened to that phone call? Was it a sale? Was it a lead? You can push that into your CRM. You can then use all of that data to optimize your marketing through bid management systems and other things like that.
Now, do you deal purely for the sort of corporate market, or do you deal with a whole range of customers from small businesses all the way up?
We have a full range. So our smaller customers are one-man bands, and we go all the way up to large corporates. It's really anyone. So we have a cost per call model. The whole service is based on volume that's put through. So obviously the big corporates are paying a lot more for the service. The benefit though is for anyone who relies on a phone call to conduct business. If you're making a sale online, you can use tools like Google Analytics and various other tools out there to understand why people are buying and what marketing is driving them to buy. The problem with businesses that rely on the phone call is that there are very few tools out there that will actually give you the information you need to be able to optimize your sales process, your marketing, to understand why people are actually buying from you so that you can optimize it. And that's the bit that we do.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I'd just like to just look at the sort of growth path that you've gone on. And when you were back there at the end of your university days, planning out your new business, did you envisage that you were going to achieve, what you have achieved now in such a short space of time? Did you plan for that level of success early on, or have you just kind of gone with the flow? Tell us about that.
I think it was sort of planned. It's probably the honest truth. We always set out to be successful. We didn't know what that really looked like and how big that looked. We just wanted it to be as big as we could make it, and we wanted to be extremely successful. So the plan was to go there, but without really any idea of where there was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm sure that your success hasn't gone, unnoticed by your competitors. And what would you say is it that sets you apart from your competitors?
That's a good question. I think partly innovation. We don't look to just deliver what a client wants. So sort of opposite to what I was saying before, clients come back with a lot of great feedback. But I think sometimes they only ask for what's right in front of them. What we do is we actually analyze what they're asking for and then deliver something far better. And I think that's probably the bit that's really set us apart from most of our competitors is understanding not only what the customer wants, but how to deliver more than what they want. Because
sometimes, as you say, within their question, there might be a clue as to what they really want, but maybe they're not specifying it exactly in their question. You need to sort of think around what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, a great example with our business is in the very early days, everyone was asking for keyword data. So everyone was looking at our first product and saying, this is great, but we want to know the individual keyword that makes the phone ring.
Yep.
And we looked at that, and we looked at solutions on how to solve that, and to be frank, they weren't very good, and they were quite inefficient, they were very costly, and so we then took it one step further and said, well, what do they actually want? If they want keyword data, they're not asking for keyword data specifically, they're actually asking to understand what's happening. They're asking for the visitor, or more importantly, they're asking about the customer. So what is the customer doing? And so they were sort of trying to make it easier by asking for the keyword, because that was the one piece of information about the customer that they thought they could use.
Yep.
But in reality, they actually wanted to know about the whole customer journey. And so that's what we set out to solve.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Now, I'd like to ask you a question about building up your team. You've gone from one or two of you in the early days. You've now got a team of 70 or so people. How have you managed this, and what have you learned about building up a team along the way?
So I suppose the one of the best decisions we made was when we got to 17 staff, which we basically recruited ourselves, Richard and I. We realized that we just weren't going to be able to scale. So at the time, the plan was to go up to about 55, and then recently we've hired a few more. And we just said, we have to hire someone who is dedicated in that role. So we hired a HR director to take on that responsibility. So that was probably the best hire in terms of getting the team up to the size that it is now. We couldn't have done it without her. And I think the main thing we've learned, I suppose, if you're talking about pitfalls of growing a team, is when you're growing that rapidly, you've really got to focus on communication. It's very easy when you're all in a little box office and literally sitting on top of each other to communicate, and everyone knows what everyone's doing. It becomes a lot harder when you're now spread across 3 offices, 2 continents, and your team has suddenly grown from sort of 17 to 3 times the size. And so there's been some growing pains there, much like any other business, and I think it's very important when you're growing at that speed to focus on the communication aspect and how do you get the same message across to everyone, and then off the back of that is the culture. And communication creates culture, and you have to have a very much a focused view on how do you keep that culture across all the different parts of the organisation, especially when they're in different offices.
Yeah, it's interesting. The reason that I ask that is because that question often crops up with people asking about growing their business, and I think the two keywords that you've identified there are delegation. Get somebody in to manage the hiring and the recruitment, and then communication. And those 2 points always crop up when we ask that question.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so. It sounds like it's been an amazing journey from 2008 up until now, but I'm sure it hasn't been all plain sailing. And I'd like to ask you about the challenges that you faced up until now, and what has been the single biggest challenge, or even maybe the biggest mistake that you've made, and how have you sort of overcome this?
And
you can be honest. Come on.
Biggest mistake, I would say, is trying to do too much. So in the early days, and we learned very quickly on this, in the early days we were just trying to do too many things and be all things to all people and try to deliver all the different things that every customer mentioned, because we were trying to get out to market. And all the ideas were great ideas, and so we were getting very excited about them, which is a very natural thing to do. But it's quite easy to get caught up in all that excitement and then basically burn out or worse, deliver a shoddy product because you've just not had the bandwidth to deliver quality. And so we learned very quickly, literally in the first sort of 12 months of the business, that actually we have to cut back and we have to focus. And rather than being a lot of things to a lot of people, we've got to be very good at what we do for the few people that actually need the product.
Excellent. So you say sort of trying to take on too much on your plate, and then the way that you've addressed that is to just try to focus in on the really high priorities.
Exactly.
Excellent. Now, can I ask you a question about mindset, if I may? How important would you say a positive mindset is for an entrepreneur?
I would say it's crucial for the entrepreneur, because without the positive mindset, you won't be able to pass on that positivity to the rest of your staff.
Yeah.
Which again comes to the communication, and if they get a negative vibe from the founder, they're going to be unsettled. And there's nothing quicker. There's no quicker path to losing staff than you having a position of being unsettled, and that going on for an extended period of time, because then the staff just feel like everything's falling apart, and their leader isn't able to control it, and therefore their job security is not there, and they will just leave. So I would say it's critical.
Excellent. Now, many of our listeners, they'll be busy building their own businesses, and they're going to face many day-to-day struggles. And if there was just one single piece of advice that you'd like to offer them, what would that be?
Yeah, let's think about that one. That's a hard one. There's a lot of things. I would say find the right people in the business. So when you're recruiting, if you're trying to grow very quickly, find the right people. Don't skimp on cost. I would say not as a big a mistake, but another mistake we made in the earlier days was we didn't have a lot of money, had a shoestring budget, and it was a case of, well, let's just hire what we can afford. And it slowed us down. And so it's a case of hire the right people, and as soon as you think they're not right, if you've hired someone and they've been with you a couple of weeks or a couple of months and you realize that it's actually not working out, don't try to keep them there. It's not good for you, it's not good for them.
Yeah.
So move on and actually go and find the right person. Your business will grow far, far quicker if you do.
That is very, very interesting, because again, that's something when I do these interviews that that people will always focus in on the people side of things, especially when it comes to growth. It's really useful advice, I think. So let's look ahead then. What does the future hold for Response Tap then, Ross?
So the next 6 months, we're expanding into over 20 countries in Europe, which is quite a lot on our plate.
Yeah.
We have, on top of that, we're still expanding out in the US and really building out a good solid client base there and getting everything up and running. We're also launching a couple of new, again, innovative products. So we're really focusing on how can we deliver the next level of service. We've been delivering a fantastic product in terms of connecting online visitors and all their activity and their full journey to phone calls. We've been doing that for a number of years now, and really we've looked at that and said, what can we do with that? What can we leverage within our current platform to deliver even better results? And so, fortunately, I can't mention the products right now, but we have a whole bunch of product development coming down the pipe. Got Europe coming, and then we're looking further afield as well. We have a lot of demand from our existing customers for Europe, which is why we're going there. For those same customers and several others are also asking for other countries around the world, and further afield. And so we're looking at that and thinking how we can plan that into the world domination plan.
Brilliant. I was going to say, it sounds like global domination coming up. That's fantastic. Good news story to hear.
Yes, it's extremely exciting, and I think that the main thing to say about there is if you are planning on that, you need to have a fantastic team behind you, and we definitely have that. And we've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort putting our team together, and they're just a fantastic team. So we're very excited, and we're ready to go and tackle the world domination. So.
I like the sound of that. Now, finally, Ross, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I want you to imagine you wake up tomorrow morning, you've got no business, you've got no assets, you've got no contacts, you've got to start from scratch, completely from scratch. Okay, what does your first week look like?
That is a good question. I would start talking to people and find out what their pain points were, to try and figure out what the next idea was, to get it off the ground. I mean, we literally, pretty much in university, I was on a student loan budget, and I started up 3 different businesses there. So they really came about from looking out at the market and seeing, okay, I think there's a need here for a particular product, and going out and building it. And I think in that, I think one of the things that is quite important for an entrepreneur to remember is start something up and know when to stop it, but also have the determination to succeed. So if something isn't working out, you need to realize it and move on. And so I think my first week would be really sitting down and figuring out what was a big pain point for someone that hasn't been solved or hasn't been solved in a particularly good way, and how that could be improved on.
Do you know what, Ross? I reckon you probably could wake up tomorrow in that situation, and I reckon pretty quickly you'll be back on your feet. I'm certain of it. So that it's market research. It's finding the pain points. It's building relationships, looking for needs, and then trying to service them.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. Well, Ross, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of our listeners in saying that you've got an amazing story so far, but I'm sure it's the first chapter. You've got a great future for yourself and for your business, and I'd just like to just say thank you very, very much for your time today, and we wish you every success for the future.
Thank you very much. Very kind words.
That's great. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ross.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks. Bye-bye.